What if I told you you could be selling the same product someone else sells from the exact same supplier, but you could charge 10x the price and still get more customers? Well, that's actually possible. And it all comes down to one principle: the art of selling luxury products. Now, I've spent the last 6 years of my life studying this art and figuring out exactly how luxury brands get away with charging insane prices for products that cost them almost nothing to make. Rolex, Louis Vuitton, all of them. And it turns out there are only 3 things that these brands have mastered. And I'm working with complete beginners who are selling products barely different from yours, but charging 3 to 5 times what you even dare to charge, all because they understand these 3 things. So today, I'm going to tell you what these 3 things are that took me 6 years to learn and thousands of dollars in about 15 minutes with examples and tactics you can use for your own brand. All right, so the first one is branding. Now, when most people hear the word branding, they think about the store, the logo, the colors, a nice font, and that stuff matters, but that's not what branding actually is. Branding is the feeling somebody gets when they land on you. It's the whole vibe, the world they think they're stepping into when they see your product. So the store, the colors, the photos, that's just where the feeling shows up. It's not the feeling itself. And a big part of that feeling is psychological, which is such a deep rabbit hole, and we're going to cover that as well later on in the video. But for now, I just need you to get this one thing. You're not selling a product, you're selling a feeling, and the product is just the thing you attach it to. Now, let me show you what I mean. So I want you to imagine that there are 2 stores with the same product from the same supplier. The first one takes a photo on their phone, drop it into a template 1,000 other stores already using, and priced it at whatever it costs them, doubled. But the second shoots that exact product like it belongs on a billboard. They build a page that feels premium and ship it in packaging that feels like an occasion to open, but charges 4 times more. Now, nothing about the product at all has been moved, but the feeling of being on that website, buying and opening the packaging is now more premium. And that space between the 2 stores, that difference in what they can charge, that's what I call the gap. It's the distance between what a product costs you and what you can actually charge for it. And that gap is probably the most important thing here, because no woman has ever paid 6 grand for a purse alone. They pay for what wearing it makes them feel like. And it goes the same with pretty much every luxury product you can think of. If you're imagining 2 stores again, for example, both selling the same watch from the same factory, the quality is the same, but they give very different vibes. And it all depends on how they are branded. So if the first one shoots some photos on a plain white background and puts a countdown timer and a 50% off banner in the ad, it may capture some people. But if the second store shoots it on a good looking man's wrist in a suit, in nice light, next to a coffee table, and a life that looks like the one the customers wishes they had, that switches from just a watch to assimilating their desired life with it, which results in far more people who actually want to buy it. And on top of that, it has a name that sounds like it means something, a little story behind why the brand exists, or a reason why it's here beyond just selling you a watch. The feeling is getting even more premium. And the interesting part is that people are very aware that it's more expensive than the rest, but they are happily paying for it because of the branding. Now, the good news is that you can achieve the same thing with your own product by asking one simple question. What feeling does owning this give the person who's buying it? And then you build the entire brand around that feeling instead of around the product. Now, if you nail that, the price can just kind of take care of itself. Now, there are 2 rules here that you've got to get right in order to actually pull this off. And the first one is knowing exactly what makes a store scream dropshipping when someone lands on it. And you probably know what I'm talking about here. The photos with a slightly wrong lighting, the same AI template everybody keeps using, the reviews that all showed up on the same day and they look like they've been AI generated. And don't even get me started on the fake urgency countdown timers that everybody uses. Now, the reason this matters so much, especially for a luxury store, is because your customer has seen dozens of guys try to run off with their money with a store like that. Their BS detector is on an all-time high. And here's the thing, even the slightest association with a store like that kills all the trust you've built so far with the branding. And now your price doesn't really matter. It can be $10 or $1,000. They simply won't buy because the trust score has fallen. Now, the good news is that cutting through all of that is actually pretty simple. You walk through your own store like a stranger who's already been burned once, you find every one of those small signals and you kill them one by one. And if you can't find any, you can even ask your friend, your mum, your dad to go through your store and flag anything that may lower trust. Now, the second rule is the one that almost nobody teaches. And it's probably the biggest thing we do differently from everyone else. Because the truth is, it's not just about how you package the product, it's about who you're actually packaging it for. What most people do is they find a product, they look at whoever's already selling it well, and they basically just copy the same approach and aim at that same customer. And then they can't really work out why it's not working for them. When in reality, the customer already knows and trusts the original brand. So you're just showing up at a slightly worse version of something they already have. So what we do is kind of the opposite. Before we commit to anything, we'll run a few static ads, which are really just simple photo ads on Facebook. And the whole point of them is to figure out one thing. Is there already a different type of customer out there for this product that everybody is basically just ignoring? Because most products actually have a few different types of buyers. And the brand that's already winning is usually only talking to one of them. So if we take that same watch, the brand selling it might be going after guys who just want to look wealthy. But there might be a whole other group of people who buy that exact same watch because it reminds them of their grandfather, and nobody's talking to those people at all. So that whole audience is just sitting there wide open, and it's yours if you get it first. And the way we find them isn't by shooting in the dark. We'll actually use an AI script to write out a big batch of different headlines and angles, and then we test them with those cheap photo ads first before we spend any money on scaling. So the ads kind of tell us what's already working before we go all in. And that way, by the time we go and sit down to actually build the brand, we already know who it's for, what to say to them, and the angle nobody else has figured out yet. And by the way, if you want me to make a whole video breaking down those exact AI prompts I use, just leave a comment with the word AI, and if the demand is high enough, I'll make it. Make sure to subscribe to the channel though to not miss it when it drops. Anyway, hold on to that idea, the testing, because it comes back in both on the next two levers, which brings us to the second one, the psychology. This is the deepest rabbit hole I promised you earlier. Because if branding is the feeling, psychology is how you actually get that feeling to somebody's head and make them reach for their card. Now, the first thing you have to understand is people don't buy because you've convinced them. People buy because the people they respect are already buying. A good example of this would be Rolex. Rolex doesn't run ads to beg people to buy their watches. What they do instead is they put their watches on the wrists of people the whole culture already looks up to, like Drake, the Kardashians, and they never once asked them to post about it. And the part where psychology takes place is when you see that watch on the wrist of someone you look up to enough times, your brain just starts to link that watch with success without you ever really deciding to. That's social proof. And it's doing this selling for Rolex way before the customers think about getting one. Now, you're probably thinking, yeah, that's easy for Rolex. They've got millions to throw around, but I can't easily get Drake to wear my product. But you don't need Drake. You just need the same idea at a smaller scale, because all Rolex is doing is borrowing status from people the customer already look up to. So you can do the same thing, just cheaper. You put the right people in your ads and on your page, people who look like the person your customer secretly wants to become actually using your product. And you stack the proof with happy clients, trusted by 5,000 people, etc. Because when someone's been burned before, the thing they are most scared of is falling for it again. So all that proof takes the fear away before they can even feel it, because now they can see the plenty of people who went before them and were glad they did. Now, there's a second part of psychology that we kind of touched on in the branding segment, where you're never really selling what the product does. You're selling how it makes the customer feel. And the best example of this I've ever seen is a company called Liquid Death. Now, Liquid Death is water. It's regular water in a can, and they charge about 5 times what a normal bottle of water costs. And nobody on earth is paying 5 times the price for hydration. They're paying because of how it's making them feel. It's loud, it's rebellious, it's funny, and people want to be a part of that. Now, Liquid Death still has to be good water, because if it tasted bad, none of the branding would save it. The feeling is what gets people to try and pay more, but the product is what makes them come back. And that's the exact thing that we do with our own ads. We test different ways of showing what our product actually does well, because the customer is the one who tells us which they care about most. Sometimes it's how the product works, sometimes it's the material is genuinely better, or sometimes it's a bit of tech that nobody else has. You're never trying to invent a feeling out of nothing. Instead, you're finding the real reason your product is better and doubling down on that. And the way you figure that out is as you test it, you let the ads show you what people actually respond to, and then you build everything around whatever wins. All right, so the third one is positioning. We've so far covered how it feels and how you get that feeling into someone's head. Positioning is the last piece, and it's how you actually price the thing and how you turn one sale into a customer that keeps buying from you. And the first rule here goes almost against everything you've ever been taught, because most people price on cost. They take what the product costs them, they double it, and they think that's a fair cost to price gap. But in reality, what a product costs you to make has almost nothing to do with what you can sell it for. What actually matters is how much it's worth to the person buying it. And by the time someone's gone through your branding and your ads, most likely they already want the thing. They already want to be the kind of person who owns it. So at that point, they're not really thinking about what it cost you to make, but about how much they want it. And that's the number you're actually pricing against. Now, the next thing is you never want to sell a product that costs you under about $10 to $15 to make. Because when something's that cheap to make, it's usually cheap in quality too. And cheap quality is what gets you refunds and chargebacks. Now, I won't go into the rabbit hole because this goes very deep, but just know that if you get too many chargebacks, your payment processor will straight up shut you down, which means your whole business is gone. So you have to be cautious about that. The other problem with low price products is that it attracts the worst kind of customer. These are Karens who don't really trust you, complain about everything, and want refunds. So the takeaway is that a higher price is actually the safer move, especially when you're running paid ads. You've got a bigger margin to cover your ad costs, and the price itself sort of weeds out the customers who are always going to be a nightmare. Now, the only reason you can get away with charging that higher price and making bold claims in your ad is if the product is genuinely good, because your customer is skeptical, and honestly, they have every right to be, because they've probably bought some cheap thing off of Amazon that did nothing that it promised, and now they won't believe a word anyone says. So when your product is actually better, when there's a real reason it works, like you have some better material, some proper tech behind it, you can say so and say it out loud because it's true. You are just telling the truth about something that's good to someone who's only ever been lied to. And that's a huge advantage. But the best part is you never have to lie to use it. Now, the second rule of positioning might be the most important one of the lot. And what this is really is a principle that allows you to make more money without spending more on ads. And the only way you can do that is to get people to buy a second, third, and a fourth time from you and eventually increase their lifetime value as much as you can. Because getting a brand new customer is the hard, expensive part where you're paying for the ads, you're fighting their doubt, doing all that work just to get them to trust you for one time. Now, once they bought and the customer is happy, most brands go straight to finding another customer. But that's one of the biggest mistakes you can make in this business because your previous ones already trust you now. So getting them to buy again and again after that costs you literally nothing. Maybe spending some on ads to re-engage them, but that's all. And that's the beauty of luxury brands, really. Because instead of selling you one thing and then disappearing, they pull you into their world and then they make you almost want them to upsell you over time. And you can do the exact same thing in your store and still look every bit as premium. The way I do it is actually pretty straightforward. I go through the whole journey myself, from the moment they see the ad to the moment they check out, and the entire way through, I'm asking myself one thing. What else does this person want? And can I put it in front of them at the right moment? Then I price the main product fairly, and I make the add-ons and the bundles feel like the premium upgrade, because that's what lets people spend more and actually feel good about it. That's your anchoring, your bundles, your upsells, all done properly, and it's where a massive chunk of your profit is sitting. So there you go. Those are the three things that make up the whole art of selling luxury products: branding, psychology, and positioning, which basically translates to the feeling you build, how you get that feeling into their head, and how you price it so the whole thing lasts. Now, if you want to actually watch all of this come together, watch this video next where I gave myself 10 hours to build a branded product from scratch and take it all the way to its first sale.